How do you make photos look beautiful, like kind of realistic, but not too much to where it looks like AI? Now, originally I would make my thumbnails in Blender, but I figured I didn't like that and it took way too much time. Then I started drawing my thumbnails and I figured out that took even more time and I just didn't like how it looked. But eventually I did find a way to make these that I actually like. So what I'll do is I'll hop into Roblox Studio and let's say I'm making a video on this game right here, Cleanup Crew. Now in this game, you just clean up crime scenes, right? So I'm going to want to make the thumbnail actually related to what happens in the game. Now first I need a set. Sometimes I'll build my own if it like requires something to look very specific. But most of the time I really don't need to go through all of that and something from the toolbox will do. So we got this standard house right here from the catalog. Probably seen this in numerous amounts of games. Now the entire idea of the game is that we're cleaning up crime scenes. So we're going to have my character cleaning a crime scene in this. So first of all, we need to import the character. Now there are tons of free plugins out there for this, but I just use Moon Animator. You know what, fuck it, let's throw my girlfriend in here. Now the idea I'm going for here is that she's in the middle of the screen cleaning a crime scene and there's just an absolute mess around her. Like I'm talking just bodies on bodies on bodies. So let's figure out where we want to place this. I feel like here would be the best because you have plenty of furniture to like put bodies on and have them like dead and laid out in unique ways. Now I need to start importing other characters to fill in the background. Alright, now I've got 6 different characters put in the background here. Now I'm going to keep her face the same in this, but usually what I would do is I'd remove their face and then replace it with like a custom face to better match the scene. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to pose these characters. I used Moon Animator for this because I got it back when it was free, but it is $30 now. There's other animation plugins out there that are cheaper, but if you really can't find any animation plugin that you can actually get, you really could just go in and pose the characters manually using the Roblox Studio tools. It's just going to be a hell of a lot easier if you're using an animation plugin. Before we even start posing the characters, there's one very important thing I always like to do. So I have this plugin called Void Monkey's animation plugin. And what it lets me do is I can select these guys right here, select her, and I can convert them into an R7 rig. Now what this does is that usually R6 characters have 6 limbs: the legs, the arms, the torso, and the head. And it's like, okay, but the problem with that is when you're moving the torso, the whole body moves. So it makes it a little more difficult to like animate and pose stuff. But what an R7 rig lets us do is we can have this lower torso part right here, which allows me to move the torso in all different ways without the legs moving. And then I can use this lower torso if I want to move the entire body. It just makes it a lot easier to do this stuff. So now we're going to pose these characters real quick. So I'm going to start a new Moon 2 file, press 9, select all of these guys right here and her, and we're just going to keep rig. So like I said, we're going to have her cleaning with a bunch of bodies around her. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have her holding like a broom or a mop while all the bodies are just laid out around. So I'm going to go to the toolbox. We're going to grab a mop. Now the easiest thing to do is if you have Moon Animator, you use Easy Weld. You can click on the model, click clean, and it'll make it a million times easier to put it into Moon Animator. Now just to make my life easier, we're going to move this mop over here and line it up to her hand because we're going to weld it to her hand. Now I've got it lined up with her hand. I'm going to move it into her character and then we're actually going to put it into left arm. Then I'm going to open back up Easy Weld, go to parts, and we're going to click the left arm and then control click this part right here and select animatable and it in place. Then we're going to join. Now if we load into Moon Animator again, we can see that not only is the mop welded to her hand, we just move this around freely, but we can also move the mop separately because we need to readjust it. So I'm just going to pose her like she's just mopping up the... I just realized she's mopping up carpet. We're going to ignore that. Now posing is pretty simple. Like even if you don't animate, you could probably figure out how to do this. Like for stuff like this, for example, if my character's doing like a simple little task like mopping. All right, we've posed her now. So I kind of use this picture as a reference. You know, his left hand's at the very top of the mop. His right hand is moved down slightly, kind of closer to the middle. He's looking down at the mop with his body kind of tilted, and I kind of replicated that a little bit with her. So now we're going to pose all of these bodies around. Alright, now I've got all the characters posed here. And we've got Creedcraft beheaded over here. Tempress is posted up on the little armchair. I'm laid out over the coffee table. We got Jandel right next to me. Laughability is over the sofa. Dennis is on the piano. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to set up the camera. So we're going to go to camera and then add. Now usually in my animations, I'll actually set the field of view to 35. But in this case, we're probably gonna want it a little higher just to get as many of these guys in shot as possible. So first we're gonna position our camera. This is honestly one of the most important parts of the entire process because the camera angle can genuinely change the entire mood of a scene. Like, of course, I could just go with something basic like this. We get most of the characters in the shot, we're missing one. I could do a close-up like this. We got two characters in the back. I could also have kind of a side view from the bottom. It really just depends on what kind of like vibe you're going for the thumbnail. Sometimes you might actually want to pose the camera first just to know what you want to put in the scene. Because you might spend a bunch of time like detailing different parts of a set just for the camera to get like 1% of that in the actual view. Now I'm just gonna go for a simple camera angle like this. Now this is almost good, but right now it just kind of looks like everyone's sitting around napping, I guess, except for Creekcraft. So we're gonna add a little more stuff to this. What I want to do is make it feel like a true like massacre happened in here. Like bullet holes in the wall, blood everywhere, police tape. So I'm gonna make a new part. I'm gonna resize this. And then we're gonna go to the toolbox, go to decals, and I'm just gonna search for a bullet hole. Now I found one I think is pretty okay, so we're gonna lay it out on the part. Then we're gonna position the part, resize it, and change the part transparency to 1. Now I'm just gonna place some of these around. It's really making it look like someone rolled up in here and John Wick this bitch. Alright, I placed a bunch of bullet holes around. You know, I placed some on some like extra walls too, so it doesn't look like dude came in here, shot up one wall and left. Like, it looks more like a struggle happened, like the guy was missing a lot. This guy really needs to check his aim, really. Now I'm gonna take the part again, and now I'm gonna grab a blood decal. Some of the stuff you could also add in post, but I honestly just find it more fun to like build it all in Roblox Studio. We can have like this little blood smear right here, stretch it out a bit, make it look like I was like shot or something and thrown across the table. Now if you are using decals for the thumbnail, sometimes it might be hard to find a decal that like really matches what you want, which in that case you could add in all the extra effects in post, or you could just upload your own decal. Okay, now we have all this blood scattered around the place. Just trying to make it look like a big like massacre happened here. Another one of the most important parts is going to be lighting. Usually what I'll do first is go to lighting and change the lighting style to realistic. That just makes it look a lot more real and really helps if you're going for like a cinematic look. But I also do have this lighting plugin right here. It just has a bunch of base lighting presets. So like Autumn, Nuke, Brookhaven. Usually for thumbnails, I'll use Donate Game lighting to have all that saturation and like color in the image. And you could also go here and manually adjust the stuff like the ambient lighting, the brightness. Like if you're going for something more gritty, you're probably going to want to have that lower. And there is also other tools you can play with to make the thumbnail look better, like using the depth of field effect, which I honestly think fits really well for this thumbnail because it almost looks like she's tuning out the chaos around her, which is kind of the vibe I was going for. Now, well, next, a lot of the time I'll just add in like little extra lights to help the character stand out more. Like we can make a part here, make it transparent, and then for lighting characters, I'll usually use a surface light, set the shadows to on, and kind of use it to highlight a character. Like now the first thing you look at in this scene is going to be her. She's highlighted, she's in the middle, the light is on her, but where you place the light also, again, depends on like the vibe of the scene and like what you're trying to make the character look like to the viewer. You know, that goes into a whole thing with like photography and like filmmaking and stuff. But if you really don't care about all that, I suggest just going with something that looks good to you. Like maybe you want to go with something like this, where the character has like a backlight, and then also combine that with a smaller light to highlight their face. And then of course you can go in, change all these settings to your liking, like change the color of them. Like now she has a more yellow backlight. You know, it's a lot more warm. You can actually make the lighting look really, really good in Roblox Studio if you know like the right settings to change. And it's honestly one of my favorite parts about making thumbnails, just trying to get like some really nice looking lighting. Like I'm gonna change this angle right here. I could change it to 0 to have it just highlight her body, but I actually like it more with the angle a little more increased. I feel like it's not just highlighting her, but like the area surrounding her. This little shadow right here also adds more dramatic effect to the scene. Now you could keep going, like you could keep just like adding little extra stuff in the background, adding more little lighting changes. Like maybe you want to highlight Creek's body and you want to have it like that. Where now when you look at this image, like these are your two main focuses. Again, it all depends on like the vibe and what you're trying to make the viewer like look at. Like, I want the viewer to notice her in the middle first before they start looking at all the bodies. So just see how calm she is and then see the mess that surrounds her. So once you got everything done, you pose your characters, you've done your lighting, you've done all your items. If you added faces, you change them. We go back to Moon Animator, or if you're not using Moon Animator, you can actually go to the camera item in the Explorer tab, change like all the field of view and stuff manually. But we go back to our camera view. Then we're actually going to screenshot the image. So like I'm going to take a screenshot of just the main part that we need. This is where I suggest you like go here and turn your studio settings up and change your quality as high as possible just for this image. Now, usually I'll use Photoshop, but you really do not need Photoshop for this. For a lot of my thumbnails, I'll literally just go to Photo P if I don't feel like loading Photoshop. So we'll use Photo P just for the sake of like convenience. So once you're on here, you're going to click New Project and then YouTube thumbnail 1280 by 720. Now we have a blank project here. We're gonna go to our screenshot and drag it onto the project. So now we've got our screenshot. Let's resize it just to fit in. I'll delete this little background right here too. Now the first thing I like to do is I'll go here to sharpen, and I'll either use smart sharpen or I'll sharpen edges. You can really make a thumbnail stand out more, and I really like how it looks. Now next, there are multiple different ways to do this, but the way I do it is I'll create a new layer, go to blending options and change the blend mode to overlay. Then I'll open the brush tab and I'll use this brush right here. We can adjust it, and now what this is going to let us do is we can add different like lights into the scene. So let's take like Tempest back here, for example. There's like no light on him in this actual scene, but if I use this brush, I can go through and highlight him. I can actually go through and highlight all of the bodies. You want to try not to like spam it everywhere like I just did. Like you want to try and make it look a little more strategic and like highlight specific areas. But like if you're just going for a simple highlight to make the character pop out, just highlighting over like the edges, or if you want to highlight like a big part of the character, that'll be fine. Now usually how I'll use this tool is like if I didn't light a character's face enough, we can just go here, click, and it'll light the character's face much more. You want to use like softer colors usually though, because like if I use this like really bright orange, she's gonna turn into a minion. You could also use this to darken a scene, using like a darker color and putting it around the character. And you can do a little something like this. But if you're just gonna do this, you might as well put like a black overlay. Honestly, I really do not mind this. Now immediately you can just tell the difference. We got this like much more like, I wouldn't say cheerful scene, but it's a lot more lighthearted. This feels more like serious. And then of course you could always go in with another layer and do even more like highlighting. Like if I want this body back here to be more prominent, you could also go in with like just a regular brush and add in like little highlights around if you really wanted to. Just find a brush that suits you. And then there's also like selecting the character. You can use quick selection. I usually use like the pen tool. Obviously this is a very rough selection. You can press Ctrl J, and then if you want to, you can throw in like a drop shadow on the character. You can give them an outline, though if you have a really rough selection like this one, it's gonna look really weird. Now this is looking pretty good. Obviously it's up to personal preference. Like maybe for you, you don't want it to be like all dark like this. You want it to be more bright. You don't want the characters to be highlighted. You just want it to be her. Maybe you don't want a drop shadow, but it's really not difficult. It may seem difficult like once you're looking at the whole process, but once you've done it like once or twice, it kind of becomes like muscle memory. I do want to show another example. This is a thumbnail I made about me and my girlfriend playing some like robbing game. So what I did is I took a base plate, I made the whole thing sand, I just copy and pasted a bunch of cacti around. So I kind of wanted to go for like a desert police chase vibe, because you know, it kind of reminded me of Despicable Me. I love that movie. I just put a bunch of copy and pasted police cars to make it look like it was a really big chase. I put me and my girlfriend in this car right here. And it's in like this really old car too. So I gave us like these kind of old outfits because I was kind of going for like a Bonnie and Clyde type of vibe. As you can see, I also changed the faces on our characters and then I got them posed. And then what I actually did, so I went into Moon Animator, I tilted the camera, then I increased the FOV, which makes the scene look like it's moving. Like we're moving really fast. You know, you can see the two main subjects. And for using the rule of thirds here, they actually lined up pretty well. So I probably should have put me more right there, but I wanted to get like more of the characters in the scene. You know, you've got a nice shine on the character from the sun. You can see that there's cop cars behind us. Now I don't have the original Photoshop file, But when I took it into Photoshop, you can see I used the brush tool to enhance the lighting on our faces. Then I selected our characters and added a little backdrop of money in the back. Then I added motion blur to the background to really make it look like we're going really fast. And we added some text right here, plus $15 million, like we just robbed a bunch of money. And then of course I went in and increased the saturation, the contrast. You really just gotta play around with everything and see what looks the best. Like some thumbnails may look better with like less saturation, and some may look really good with like higher saturation and contrast. It really does just depend on which vibe you're going for. But if I was making another video on cleanup crew, this is probably what I would use. Of course, this is just how I do it. This isn't necessarily the best way to do it. Like you could use Blender and get more realistic lighting, but then you have to worry about, you know, putting models in there. Then if you have like a bad PC, it's gonna feel like it's taking years to render it. I've just found this to be the fastest and most effective way for me personally. So yeah.
See ya.